Ladies and gentlemen, we are live!
Lyrically, I'm untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600. Untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode here of Punch the Face Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Stubbs. Yes, I am back from vacation. Yes, I survived Las Vegas. No, I did not win the big money I wanted, but I came back in one piece, and hopefully with no illegitimate children 9 months from now. But nevertheless, I'm here for you, the boxing fans. We got a big fight weekend, so I'm back. I had to come back for the show, for the people. We're doing it for the culture, folks. With that being stated, since I am still recouping from vacation, there was no way in the world I was going to be able to do the show alone this week. So I have a fresh voice, if you will, joining the program here this week. There's none other than Seamus McNally. You can catch him on Twitter at SEAMUSMCNALLY13. That's a lot of letters, but I'm tweeting it out. Follow me on Twitter, BrandonP2TF. You'll get his Twitter handle. You'll get familiar with him. Seamus, thank you for being part of the program here tonight.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'm very excited about tonight.
Oh, absolutely, man. Like I said, we got a big fight weekend here. We've got Terence Crawford, Julius Indongo, undisputed number one fighter at 140 pounds. That'll go down this weekend live on ESPN. For those who are in the Midwest and feel like traveling, there are a handful of tickets still left. There to watch the fight live in Lincoln. But otherwise, you can watch it from the comfort of your own home and on free television. Nothing wrong with free.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this fight. You know, was only the first, second or third time that all four belts have been on the line in a title fight. Two undefeated guys. Crawford's top 5 pound for pound, top 3 even. Indongo kind of came out of nowhere, but hey, he earned his way here with upset wins on the road against some Russian dude and who had the IBF belt, and then he went into Ricky Burns' hometown and outboxed him. So he earned a shot to be here. It's even better that it's on ESPN. Hopefully it doesn't run overtime, and it doesn't start on ESPN2 like the Lomachenko card. But nonetheless, I'm very excited.
You bring up a good point. Let's kind of start there because this is now going to be the third card that they put on, Top Rank is put on here through ESPN. The first fight went off without a hitch, and that was obviously Manny Pacquiao versus Jeff Horn. I think a lot of us had beef with some of the production or some of the people a part of production. Really, Stephen A. Smith and Teddy Atlas were quite annoying, but we took it for what it was worth. The second fight, like you said, the Lomachenko fight really didn't get the shine it deserved because the fight ended up getting pushed back and being put on first ESPN3, which is through the online app, then ESPN2, and then moving around to ESPN. So people were confused where to find the fight and how to actually watch the fight. Now, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's not going to be anything like that here this week. I believe there is possibly Little League Baseball that will come on before, but I think it's going to be enough time, enough cushion in between there to where the fight should come on live and on time on ESPN. But as a fight fan first, is how confusing or how frustrating is that, when you lock down, you sit down on a Saturday night to watch a big fight, and then you have to wait on another live sporting event to end before you can watch the fight?
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate. Actually the viewership numbers were less than Lomachenko's last fight, which took place on HBO. HBO only reaches, 20 million homes, and ESPN reaches like 80 million, but because of the whole fiasco with ESPN2 and running overtime, less people got to watch the Lomachenko fight than on HBO, and that was the whole point of bringing Top Rank, bringing their stars to ESPN was to introduce them to a wider audience. And unfortunately, Teddy Atlas, Stephen A. are still going to be part of the broadcast, but Tim Bradley got let go in favor of Andre Ward, which I found very interesting, and maybe it's a sign of things to come with Andre Ward's relationship with Top Rank.
Well, this is very true and, kind of indicative. A couple of weeks ago, prior to going on vacation, we had Louis Arza here on the show. He did say that as far as he knew, and he was there in New York that week talking to Rock Nation Sports that, they were still in the boxing game. They were still getting some things together. So, he was very upfront and very honest about the situation there. So we'll see. We'll see how that all works out with Top Rank. And obviously, Andre Ward kind of has a dog in the fight, if you will. A part of the undercard is one of the guys that he is somewhat co-managing, co-promoting, and Shakur Stevenson, which we'll talk about here in a few moments. So it makes sense. And, as much as I dislike Andre Ward as a person per se, he does do a really good job of commentating. He really does break it down. So now, obviously, with him being with ESPN, it means more Roy Jones Jr. on HBO when they do have fights, which there's nothing wrong with at all.
Yeah, I honestly have Andre Ward as the second best boxing analyst, in terms of boxers who do broadcast, besides Paulie Malignaggi, obviously. I think he's better than Bradley. I think he's better than Roy Jones. I think he's better than Bernard Hopkins. So I think it's going to enhance the broadcast because, let's face it, Teddy Atlas and Stephen A. Smith are almost unbearable.
There's no almost about it. They are unbearable. I mean, you're giving those guys a little bit too much credit. I mean, Teddy Atlas, I think we've all agreed. We've kind of gotten used to his level of stupidity, his level of ignorance, if you will, because all the years of us watching Friday night fights, we got kind of used to it. So it was like, we know it's going to come. It's not a big deal. But, Stephen A. Smith just is so uneducated in regards to the world of boxing. And admitting, while he's live on air that, I haven't watched this guy's fight or don't know much about him, but he's a bum. Like, you can't say that kind of stuff and be taken seriously in the world of boxing or the world of sports, period. Very few places can you go in and say, I don't watch this or I don't know anything about this, but I want you to pay me to talk about it. So I think that's kind of dumb on ESPN's part, but they pay Stephen A. Smith a lot of money to be a personality on the network. So, unfortunately, we will have to deal with him yet another weekend as we watch big-time boxing on free television.
Yeah, honestly, I think, Stephen A.'s lack of knowledge is disrespectful to the fighters that are on the broadcast and, honestly, the sport as a whole. I appreciate ESPN's newfound commitment to boxing. And, it's great that, it will now be shown to millions more people and that SportsCenter is doing preview shows and talking about the fights after the fact on SportsCenter. But you got to have more knowledgeable guys than Stephen A. Smith co-hosting those shows. I don't like Dan Raphael, but he's a very knowledgeable guy about the sport, so why not have him co-host the show? Or, Nigel Collins is part of their ESPN boxing staff, too. He's a very knowledgeable guy, too. Why not have somebody like them? Obviously Stephen A. Smith brings the star power, the name, but you got to have, at the end of the day, you got to have somebody who knows the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a tremendous discredit, like you said, to all the individuals involved in the events. And involved in boxing, we have guys who just don't know what they're talking about. So we're going to try to do it as much justice tonight and talk about boxing and act like we know what we're doing. So with that being stated, let's dive in here to the main event. The lineal, I guess it would be a lineal championship at this juncture, but it's going to be the first time since Zab Judah, if I can enunciate his name, Zab Judah, where it's going to be an actual fighter at 140 pounds who will hold all of the belts. And that is Terence Crawford versus Julius Indongo or however he enunciates his name. So, Indongo. I was completely wrong. See, this is why I need a co-host when it comes to these international names because I am way off with them. With Indongo, like you said earlier, a lot of American fans may not be familiar with him at all. He is 22-0. He's 34 years old, which is very old for someone who is, I don't want to say old, kind of, I don't want to call him old, but he is old. I mean, he's 34. I'm only a year older than him, but, he kind of got a late start because he is an Olympian. So he did spend a lot of time in the amateur program getting involved in the sport of boxing, but with him having such a heavy amateur background, it made it kind of easy for him to transition into a pro. This is only going to be his third fight out of his home country of Namibia. I think that's where he's out of. He fought over in Russia when he won his first championship. Like you said, it was a first-round knockout. He literally beat the brakes off of Ricky Burns. Let's just call it what it is. A very uncompetitive fight by Ricky Burns standards to win another championship there. So this is where he's at now, to where he can gain the other two belts in the 140-pound division. So let's kind of start there. With fans not really knowing who he is and me having an opportunity to watch some of his fights, do you think he has a legitimate chance, or what skill set do you think he brings that may be able to give Crawford some trouble?
Well, like you said, he pretty much came out of nowhere. Nobody had ever, even though he was an Olympian, he wasn't some heralded, prospect like a Michael Conlon or Kerr Stevenson coming out of the Olympics. Nonetheless, he has Olympic pedigree. Kind of came out of nowhere. Now, the IBF titleist at the time, Edward Kravansky, I think is what his name is, from Russia, he was kind of unknown himself. But nonetheless, he was favored in that fight. I think they brought in Indongo as just an easy hometown defense, and he blasted him out of there with one punch. And I think a lot of people just kind of wrote him off as, oh, that was a lucky punch. But then, he was the underdog going into Ricky Burns' hometown, and, hey, he beat the brakes off of him. He outboxed him cleanly. Do I think he's on the same level as Terence Crawford? No, I don't. He's earned the right to be there. He has 2 of the belts. He went into the hometowns of champions and knocked them off. But those guys aren't on the level of Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford beat the brakes off of Ricky Burns himself. It's not a knock on Indongo to say that I don't think he's going to win or I don't think he has much of a chance, because Crawford's top 5, top 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Easy. Crawford's just a special fighter, But that being said, Indongo is a tall, rangy southpaw, and he uses it well. He stayed on the outside for most of the fight against Burns and just, beat the brakes off and outboxed him cleanly. He established the range well, used his jab well, and, no one likes to fight tall, rangy southpaws. And while he's only, 22-0 with 11 knockouts, it doesn't scream huge power. He showed against Travatsky he's capable of landing a one-punch knockout. But at the end of the day, I think Crawford beat the brakes off of Postal and Felix Diaz, both who were highly regarded in the division. He beat him easy. So I think it'll end up being around a similar thing, either a late knockout, or a toy, a easy decision win, or toying with him with a late stoppage.
With that being stated, do you think that, Julius is kind of playing with, since I'm coming back from Vegas, is he playing with house money? He really has nothing to lose because he's not the name here. He's not the guy who's going to be fighting in front of, really his hometown or home state crowd. He's not the guy who's touted as being amongst the top 3 fighters pound for pound in the world. He's just a titleist from an African country that not a lot of people know about. So is he really playing with house money? Is all the pressure on Crawford, given the circumstances of how this bout is being set up? Or, is he, does Julius really should we give him more credit than what he's being given for? It's kind of a weird situation here because he's a champion, but he's kind of coming out of nowhere for this bout and then having to go a 3rd time in a row into someone's backyard to gain that respect. He definitely deserves respect for putting himself in the position to be in this bout. Like we talked about, he knocked off 2 champions in their hometown, undefeated, southpaw, Olympian. But yeah, at the end of the day, the pressure's on Crawford to win. He's expected to win. It's in his hometown. He's lauded as a top pound-for-pound fighter. He's well known to the American audience. He won the lightweight lineal title, and he won the 140-pound lineal title against Postal. He's with a big-name promoter, Top Rank, who's putting on the show. And with a win here, he is going to be moving on to bigger and better things, most likely at 147. So, yeah, the pressure's on him to win. Now, Indongo's, he's co-promoted by Eddie Hearn now. Eddie Hearn earned the rights to be his promoter after he beat Ricky Burns. So he's with a big-name promoter too. But at the end of the day, yeah, Crawford's the A-side for a reason. He should win. He's expected to win. And if he loses, it's a big step back. So, I put the poll up here on my Twitter. Again, if you're not following me on Twitter, you're listening to the show. It's Brandon P2TF. Not a lot of people were hyped about this because I didn't get as many votes as we have in past further polls, which is kind of disappointing. But I will say this. The question was this. With the win Saturday night, where would Terence Crawford be in regards to boxing fans' eyes? Now, the options were pound for pound number 1, among pound for pound but not number 1. He's good, but he's not Floyd. Well, the final option was ready to conquer 147. And 55% of the votes came in as saying he's among pound for pound, but not number one. So I thought that was kind of strange that, 55, really, more than half the voters say he's good, but he's not number one. 27% of the voters said he is pound for pound number one, while both 9% say he's good, but he's not Floyd, and another 9% also says he's ready to conquer 147. So, I mean, it's kind of strange that, a couple different layers to this. One, Terence Crawford really should be a household name in boxing. I think that's something that all of us who watch boxing, who are fans of boxing, we see him fight, we appreciate his skills, and like you said earlier, he's a special talent. I don't throw that much praise around. Terence Crawford is special, and I'm even willing to admit that. And I'm a bigger hater on all fighters compared to anybody. I'm a hater. I'll admit it. People who listen to the show, they know I hate people. And I don't give credit where it's due, but Terence Crawford's special. And it's a shame that ESPN, who's airing this bout, hasn't pushed this fight more. But I also think, for Terence Crawford to maybe be recognized and get more votes as being pound for pound number one, is he has to be a little bit more vocal and be a little bit more out in the media. He's very reluctant to do so, so I think that also hurts him in polls like this. And granted, I don't think he cares, but, if you don't have people caring to want to watch your fights, that's going to hurt you in the long run of popularity and to get these big monies and maybe him being pay-per-view's next big star.
Anyone who's not excited about this fight has their heads up Floyd and Connor's ass. Let's just be real.
I agree. I mean, but still, ESPN should be doing a little bit more because they, to their credit, they did do a lot with Lomachenko. They had him there in a lot of the studios and what have you. But granted, that fight was also, in California, to where they have ESPN studios. I mean, Terence Crawford's fighting in the middle of the Midwest. There's no ESPN studios for him to go to. The only time he was on television, any that I can remember here for the fight, was during the Lomachenko fight where him and Julius were interviewed in a very awkward setting right next to each other. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a shame, Crawford being as talented as he is, they should push it the same as they did the Pacquiao one fight. I mean, that got incredible push. What did it have, like 4 million viewers? So it shows if the ESPN machine gets behind Crawford or gets behind Lomachenko or anybody, as long as they can deliver inside the ring, they can become a huge star. And I think that's the end goal with the Top Rank series, but it's in its infancy stage. Yeah, like you said, or like I said, people aren't excited about this fight, their heads up Floyd and Connor's ass. Yes, Crawford's a favorite. Yes, he should win. But like we talked about, how it's very rare that all 4 belts are on the line, and the fact that both fighters are undefeated. It's what's best about boxing. And yeah, it's a shame that ESPN isn't pushing it as hard as they could, but I understand he's not quite as big a name as Pacquiao yet, so he's not, a reliable draw. But I think as long as the start time isn't dicked up like the Lomachenko fight was, it'll get pretty good viewership. And, if he excites like he has excited in his last few fights, he's always fought great fights. I don't remember a Crawford fight on TV since the Gamboa, starting with the Gamboa fight, they've all been exciting. So as long as the start time is what it should be and he puts on a show again, he could be the heir apparent to Floyd along with Errol Spence as the next American star. And that's a fight I'd like to see in the future.
We'll definitely see. Now, somebody who I know is extremely vocal when it comes to Terence Crawford and a guy who's a big fan of him and a big fan of our show, ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable, the one and only Mike Money is live here now on Punch to the Face Radio. Mike, man, what's going on?
Yo, B, what's going on, man? You hit it right on the head. Terence Crawford is special. And I'm looking at this fight. Everything that I was thinking about, you already alluded to, insofar as ESPN doing a shit job with promoting this fight. This fight is bigger than the bullshit on the 26th. This fight is bigger than the bullshit on September 16th. This is a big fight because this is going to be the start of the calls for Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, hopefully 2018. And we've been talking about this fight. I've been talking about this fight for 2 years already, but you already know. My thing is this. I know you're saying that Terence Crawford should ingratiate himself with the media, but if you look on the flip side, look at Floyd and look at what Adrian Broner did with the media, how they acted. He's an upstanding gentleman, just like the number one pound-for-pound fighter, Andre Ward. And if he wins this fight, Terence Crawford is still number 2, period. He doesn't go. He stays at number 2. He is the number 2 top pound-for-pound fighter in boxing. Look what he is, and I think, coming out of, Nebraska and all that good stuff, why not promote that? Why not celebrate that? Why? Because he doesn't act like a coon? I don't understand. He is, to your point, he is special. And then once he's cleared out 140, Triple G really hasn't done anything in the worst division in boxing. So, I mean, we should be celebrating Terence Crawford, and ESPN should be ashamed of themselves of the shit job they've been doing promoting this fight.
Now, I agree. I mean, now, I will say this in regards to Crawford and the media is, maybe do a few more interviews here and there. Now, I'm not saying he get outlandish or crazy. I'm not even saying that so he can be a guest on my show. What I'm saying is, maybe do another, do some spots here and there. Maybe show up to a big fight every now and again just to be seen by the press. I'm not saying he go out of his way or anything like that, but I think he does need to be a little bit more, pushed out there to the people. Like, the media is not going to bite, and I think Crawford's also smart enough and has the proper team around him to where if they see it's too much, they'll pull him back. And I think he's smart, and I think his team is smart enough to where if the media gets a little bit too wacky around him, they'll take him out of it. But I do think he needs somewhat more of that push to go more mainstream. I'm not telling him to sell out by no means. I don't want him to go the Broner route. I don't want him to go the Floyd route. Even Andre Ward, who granted you're saying is still going to be number 1, even he's a little bit more vocal with the media than what Terence Crawford is. Even if he can get to Ward's level with the media, I think he could be such a bigger star and more fans of boxing could appreciate what he brings to the table because when he fights, it is special. We've seen him. The Gamboa fight is one I had to watch again here this week because it just really, it totally encompassed what he is about. He was losing those first 4 rounds. He figured it out, made his adjustments, and completely went out and opened up a can of whoop ass on Gamboa. Who, trust me, I'll have something to say about Gamboa later in the show as well. I'll do some Gamboa shaming, but that's neither here nor there.
No doubt. And I'm glad you mentioned his team because the BWAA should be ashamed of themselves. Terence Crawford, he wins this fight. Bo Mack, he should be trainer of the year. I don't understand, and we've had this conversation before. I don't understand what black fighters, the black fighters will get fighter of the year, but their trainers don't get trainer of the year. That's something that I don't understand for the life of me because they think that because they're so special that they don't need their trainers. That's bullshit. I don't understand it. I don't accept it. I don't agree with it. He has an amazing team, and his team, they're vocal on Twitter, as you know. Shout out to Team Crawford, no doubt. I'm just waiting for a good fight. And I can't wait till Terence Crawford has all 4 belts. And then if he goes up to 147 after this fight, it'll be another good one, which I wanted to see a couple years ago, too. Politics blurring the way they are. I wouldn't mind seeing Terence Crawford and Mikey Garcia. That will be a goodie.
That would be, but unfortunately, I think Mikey might have shit and said it in regards to ever doing business again with Top Rank. Stranger things have happened, but, you sue him, you set out 2 years. We'll
ain't
see.
Gonna happen. I know.
Mikey, though, when I interviewed him, he did say that, he still has lots of communication with Top Rank. Top Rank says, nah, not so much. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be one of those things. The people demand it, and the money is there, and I think the money will be there, and I think the fans definitely would love to see that. It could happen. I think it could happen. Will it be the next fight out for both of them? Doubt it, but I think it's something that would be extremely feasible in 2018, along with the Spence fight. I think the Spence fight's one. It may marinate a bit to where we may not see it 2018, but maybe early 2019. But that's coming. I think it's coming. I think it has to at this rate because those are going to be the guys that are going to be the faces of boxing going forward, and really are the faces of boxing now. Let me just not say going forward. I mean, we still have Andre Ward. We have Anthony Joshua there in heavyweight. But we need other guys, and these are the 2 guys that can be the faces of boxing for everyone going forward.
No doubt, man. Shout out to Brent, man, my man B, man, Punch to the Face Radio, 8 p.m. Wednesday, Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, man. Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed your vacation, your birthday, many more. God bless you. Man, keep cooking, bro. We got to talk next week about this fight. And shout out to Clarissa Shields. Man, did she put some whoop ass on last week? Golly. Oh, man.
Hey, yo, but Mike, before you go, I need you to do me a solid, and I need you to put pressure on somebody for me. Now, I've talked to a couple of people, and I've gotten 2 people to agree to this, and obviously I'm down with it. So I need you to reach out to our brother Ishmael Dul-Salam of Beats Boxing Mayhem, NYK Loyalist. The Ruckus Reunion is going to happen. He's the last piece that I've yet to hear from, so I need you to holler at Ishmael and tell him, hey, let's get it to going. Ryan's down, Ginger's down, I'm down. We're waiting on Ishmael. I still haven't heard back from him, so put pressure on Ishmael to bring back the Ruckus Reunion. He's the last cog that we need.
I got you, bro. And then listen, when I call in, man, hopefully you can hook me up with a little special, special introduction like you do, man. Yo, B, man, my brother, keep doing it. I got you. I'm going to reach out to Brother Ishmael. Maybe, if not tonight, definitely tomorrow. The Ruckus Reunion, oh, man, Punch to the Face Radio. Y'all better listen, man. My boy Brandon's doing big things, man. I holler at you.
All right, man. Love you, Mike, man. You take it easy. And next week we'll be back. Adam will be live in Lincoln, so he'll be on next week's show talking about all that he's seen and he done and all the festivities involved with Crawford's fight. So make sure you call in next week, my brother.
I got you, bro. All right, man.
All right, later, man. All right, that was the incomparable Mike Money live here on Punch to the Face Radio. Seamus, if you didn't catch that, Mike loves boxing. Don't know if you noticed that or not.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So shout out to Mike, man. He's one of the strongest supporters here of the show. He did bring up a good point. Now, do you think that, Bo Mack gets the credit he deserves in regards to training Terence Crawford the way that he does, or is it one of those things to where people say, oh, Terence Crawford is that special of a talent? Nah, his trainer's not that great. Like, does the trainer deserve more credit than what he's getting?
I think he's an underrated trainer for sure. I mean, he's gotten consideration for the trainer of the year, but everyone's so in love with Abel Sanchez and Freddie Roach. I don't see him winning, especially because Crawford has 2 or 3 other trainers in his corner at the same time. Not a knock on Bo Mack. He's done a great job with Terence Crawford. Sorry. I agree with most of what Mike said. The only thing I won't agree with, or 2 things, is Terence Crawford ain't exactly a saint. He was found guilty of wrecking the auto body shop. And I also don't agree with him saying that Canelo Triple G is bullshit. It's not even. Mayweather McGregor is bullshit. Canelo Triple G, to me, is on the same line of Indongo, Crawford, of the 2 best guys in their division facing off.
Mike has a special place in his heart for Canelo, so he's saying that from a special place. Honestly, I think with the fight next month, I'm really psyched for it. I'm a fan of both these guys. I really, and I really didn't like Canelo, but he kind of turned me into a fan in the way that he carries himself and the way he actually is a ambassador for Mexican boxing. I think he's a good guy at the end of the day, and I really think next month's fight is going to be amazing. A lot of people don't agree with Mike, but Mike says that from a special place in his heart. He means no harm by it. He's not a fan of both of those gentlemen. So, he said something. But he said something interesting. He says, regardless of whatever happens, here comes Saturday night, Andre Ward's still number 1 pound for pound. If, say, for instance, we have Terence Crawford do what he did against Gamboa here this Saturday night, and to where he gets a great knockout and it's a great fight, is it going to be tough not to put him up at number 1, being now the lineal champion holding all the majority of the belts at 140? Is it tough to not put him at number 1, or is it still a legit argument? Andre Ward's 1, Crawford's 2, Lomachenko's 3.
It's tough. I think even if he wins, because the fact that Indongo is not very well known, even though he's undefeated with 2 belts, he's still very well unknown. That I don't think he'll jump Ward. Personally, I have Lomachenko at the top, but everyone's top 10 pound for pound list varies. It's all subjective. I wouldn't put him I wouldn't put Crawford number one. I mean, he's all right. Lomachenko, Ward, and Crawford are all they're really interchangeable, to be honest. So I wouldn't put Crawford number one, but he's right up there. You know, if he does the same thing to Mikey Garcia, or if he goes up to 147 and does that to Errol Spence the same that he did to Gamboa, then 100% he would be number one.
Agreed. Now, I mean, your point is very valid in regards to those three guys. When you're talking pound for pound, Lomo, Bud, Ward, those are the three names you hear from everyone's mouth in regards to who's their number one, but those three are always amongst their three. So really depending on the vantage points you have, either one of those guys, nothing's wrong with saying that guy's number one compared to someone else. I got no beef with that. I'm leaning more towards Crawford if he has a dominating performance being number one, absolutely. But I'm also biased against Andre Ward, so there's that. So I mean, it can go either way with me. I still think Lomachenko's the god, as I call him, Lomo the god. So I mean, it can go either way. Now, it's pretty clear, and from what you're saying and both what I've indicated is, both of our official picks are we're liking Terence Crawford to win here Saturday night. Now, you thinking it's going to go probably the full 12 rounds? You think it's going to be a unanimous decision win for Bud?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, Indongo, we don't know how good his chin is, to be honest, but I think he's good enough to be able to compete, better than, a Hank Lundy or a Felix Diaz, that he can hang in there for all 12. I would say he's more comparable to Victor Postol, who was able to last the distance.
And I'm actually going to double you up and agree there. I think that Indongo's going to be solid. I honestly hope, and just kind of watching some of Indongo's fights, I have a feeling it may play out kind of similar to how the Gamboa fight kind of played out, to where maybe Crawford may take a couple of rounds to get used to the southpaw and the length, and then once he gets it figured out, it's going to be on and popping after that. So I think Indongo's going to have a chance to really earn some respect and win some rounds early on. Those first 4 rounds are going to be critical for him to oppose his will and gain that respect. But Crawford's such a smart guy that he's going to be make those adjustments the back half of that fight. So I do look for Crawford to win via unanimous decision. I do think he's going to probably knock down Indongo at least once. So we're going to get a chance to see how good Indongo's chin is, because I think it's going to get checked. But I do look for Terence Crawford to win via unanimous decision in a very entertaining bout, and I think it's going to work to the advantage of Indongo as well, that even if he loses this fight and he's still entertaining and competitive, people are going to want to see him again. In a similar note to where when we were watching the Pacquiao-Jeff Horn fight, we all said, man, we kind of like this guy, Jeff Horn. We wouldn't mind seeing him again after he loses to Manny Pacquiao. And then he won. So I think it's going to be kind of the same result, but Terence Crawford clearly winning the fight to where we're going to want to see more of Indongo here on U.S. television going forward.
100% agree with that. Before you brought up Horn, I was thinking that myself, Obviously Horn got the nod, but regardless, had he won or lost, he gave a good enough account of himself that, the American audience would love to see him again. But yes, Crawford's combination of his ring IQ as well as his, I guess you could say, dog in him and his lethal and his pretty good power, that combination is what sets him apart and puts him on an elite level. Because, yeah, it takes him sometimes a few rounds to figure it out. But then, he calculates what guys are all about, their rhythm and whatnot, and then he finds the range and starts picking them apart. And he's got that dog in him, when not many guys have. That when you're down in a fight or the going gets tough, he bites his mouthpiece, bites down his mouthpiece and goes to work. And then he's got pretty good power. And then when he does hurt somebody, he's very good at finishing them. That combination of it all puts him right up there at the top.
Now, a fight that we'll also be able to see on ESPN, and again, Seamus, this is why I have you on, because I know I'm probably going to butcher the name here, Alexander Gvozdzik.
Yeah, pretty much. You got it right. Alexander Gvozdzik.
All right, we'll go with that. The Ukrainian fighter, he's kind of looked upon as being one of these guys who could be the next big thing, especially here at 175. He's going to be fighting for kind of an alphabet belt against Craig Baker. That's going to be your co-feature of the night that you'll be able to see on the ESPN portion of the card. Now, as far as Alexander goes, He's a Ukrainian. He's got knockout power, Olympian, 13 wins, 11 of those are KOs. This is going to be a showcase bout for him. How special of a guy can he be at 175?
I think he's legit. I think he's right up there with the top undefeated guys, minus Ward. Like Beterbiev, that Dmitry Bivol, the guy coming up that's been on Showbox recently. What's his name from Canada? Not Pat. The guy who just beat Bashful. Elier Alvarez.
Alvarez. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's right up there with those guys. I don't think any of those undefeated guys can necessarily beat Andre Ward. I mean, like we talked about, Andre Ward's right up there, number one pound for pound. Kovacic's right there. I think, like you say, this amounts to a showcase fight. I think it's a stay busy fight. I think he should get Baker out of there pretty quickly. And then, hopefully with Beterbiev not signing with Top Rank, but Top Rank winning his purse bid for his IBF Eliminator, if they sign him, hopefully that's a fight they make down the road between Kovacic and Beterbiev for a shot at Ward.
Yeah, I think the guy has a ton of talent, and for those who haven't got an opportunity to see him fight, I think it's going to be very eye-opening. I will tell you, don't blink, because I think he's going to make very quick work of Baker. But I agree. I think he's one of these guys. He needs a little bit more seasoning still because he's still young in the professional game. But, again, he's another one of these guys, been in the Olympic program, 30 years old, medalist in London. So, I mean, he knows what he's doing. But it's just one of those things to where he's just not had as many professional fights as most fighters at his age have had. So, very capable fighter. I look for him to win via knockout here, and I think it's going to be one of those things, again, great showcase bout here for a large audience here in America to get familiar with him, and we can all learn the enunciation of his last name, as long as Teddy Atlas isn't doing it.
Yeah, I think he'll make pretty quick work of Baker. He's part of the same camp as Lomachenko. He's trained actually by Lomachenko's dad, and he's managed by Igis Klimas, who also manages Lomachenko. So he's part of that camp, so that kind of tells you all you need to know about his boxing skills. I think it's a very similar showcase kind of bout as to Gervonta Davis when he fights that unknown Costa Rican dude. It's the same thing. You try to get a quick knockout, look impressive in front of a big audience.
Yeah, and somebody else is on the card as well that's going to be making their U.S. debut that we are, us in boxing, we're quite familiar with is Dylan White. He's going to be making his U.S. Debut fighting over here. I believe, and don't quote me on this, but obviously if you follow me on Twitter, I'll have more details of Fight Night. But I believe his fight you'll be able to see on Top Rank TV through Top Rank's website. Making his U.S. debut, he's made a lot of headlines and fought some really good opposition over in the U.K. I said this, that I think a lot of American fans are going to fall in love with him. When you see a guy like Dylan White, what do you see about him that impresses you in his fights?
He's a dog, man. He gave Anthony Joshua his toughest bout of his career. He had Joshua rocked and hurt. He wasn't able to finish him, and Joshua was able to get him out of there in the 7th round, but he gave Joshua everything he had. He actually beat Joshua in the amateurs, so it was actually an event about Joshua, but puts on great fights. His fight with Derek Chisora in December was incredible. It was one of the best heavyweight fights ever. Not ever, but one of the best fights I've seen in a long time. And this also amounts to a showcase bout. Obviously, it's not on ESPN, but, yeah, you can find it on Top Rank's website. You should get Malcolm Tan out of there pretty quickly. Similar thing, Craig Baker, just a dude brought in to make White look good. The bout for White is really to stay busy and potentially set him up, introduce him to the American audience and potentially set him up for a fight with Deontay Wilder or a rematch with Joshua or a fight with a WBO belt holder, Joseph Parker, or Huey Fury if Huey Fury beats Parker.
For the American fans, when you look at him, you may get him confused with Jarrell Big Baby Miller because, honest to God, they really look extremely similar, both in the face and somewhat in the body shape, although White is in far better shape. But you put them side by side and you tell them, pick out which one. Without the guys actually talking, you may not know which one's the American and which one is from the UK. But the thing that I think a lot of American fans will like about White is the style a little sloppy at times. It is. But, he goes in for the kill. His nickname is the Body Snatcher for a reason. He throws these punches with ill intent, but he is polishing up a lot more. He is working on his jab. He is working on his counters. He's working on his defense. He learned a lot from that Joshua loss, but he gained so much respect and so much self-confidence from that. Like you said, he had a hell of a fight with Derek Chisora here in December. That's one I wouldn't mind seeing again. And Chisora is by no means a bum. Very skilled guy, a heavyweight himself. So I think a lot of American fans, get ready to see the next wave of heavyweights. Some of them are American, some of them are not, but Dylan White's a guy I think American fans will embrace, they'll love, and I really think that this fight here Saturday night will be a good showcase for them to see him knock somebody out and do it in very vicious fashion, because he's very capable of doing that. Good hooks, but like I said, he's just a little bit sloppy, but still he's getting polished. He's only 29. He's improving with each bout out, but I think American fans are going to fall in love with him after they see him.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to see him make his U.S. debut. It should amount to quick work, but he's probably around a top 10 heavyweight. I think he can give anyone in the top 10, top 5 a good fight. He makes for great fights. Honestly, I would actually favor him to beat Deontay Wilder. But maybe I'm in the minority with that, but I think White is capable of beating Wilder as long as Wilder doesn't hit him with a rocket right hand. But, yeah, White's a good fighter, always improving, and he's looking to get in there and make for a good fight, entertain the fans.
And another guy who's going to be a part of the undercard that me and you were saying here before the show started, that we both like, not only as a fighter but as a person, Mike Reed. Mike Reed is going to be on the undercard here. Again, you'll be able to see his fight on Top Rank. I do know for a fact he's going to be a part of the Top Rank TV portion that you'll be able to watch online. Just an overall good kid. Now, the thing is this with Mike is I really wish he would get more shine and more opportunity to fight on larger platforms to get television time. But, to Top Rank's credit, they're not rushing him. They're bringing him along progressively. He's going to be facing a guy, and Robert Frankel. I don't know. I'm bad at enunciating these names, as people know by the show. But, it's going to be another stepping stone, another veteran who's going to be able to give Mike a couple of different looks, but shouldn't be anything Mike should be overwhelmed with. He should probably easily win a unanimous decision. But, he's one of these guys. He is on the fringe of being something special, but just needs that extra push. I say he's going to continue his climb from being prospect to contender. What do you like about Mike Reed? Because I know you've got an opportunity to see him there in the DMV area fight a few times.
I actually saw him fight as an amateur, first off, and then I saw him again in his 5th pro fight. He fought a guy named Ramses Gill, and he knocked him out cold in the 6th round. He's short for his division. He's only 5'6", at 140 pounds. But he boxes really well. Despite being a short fighter, he's very adept at fighting on the outside and inside. He doesn't have great power. He has solid power. It's respectable. Like you said, he's on the rise. He's been built along slowly. At 22-0, it would be nice to see him get some TV exposure. The Top Rank platform, of course, anybody can go on the internet and watch it, but it's not a platform like ESPN, so he won't get seen by as many people. But there's some interesting names at 140 pounds, undefeated guys. Maurice Hooker, Regis Prograis, both 22-0 is Hooker, and Prograis is I think around the same thing. So maybe those matchups would be interesting to make, down the road on its, TV broadcast. I'd like to see him on a opening fight on ESPN. I mean, they put on Michael Conlan, who was 3-0 against a bum from Australia, and they're going to put Shakur Stevenson against a bum on TV. So at 22-0, I'd like to see him get wider exposure, but I think Top Rank's doing the right thing with slowly building him up. He's got a good amateur pedigree. He won the National Golden Gloves, I think, 2011, before turning pro. So he just got to keep building him up. He's got to keep developing his skills, and eventually he'll get his opportunity on TV.
And also they're on the same card. And honest to God, as I kind of looked at this last weekend, Top Rank really kind of stacked this, and they did it in a really sneaky fashion that you really didn't notice all these names are part of it. We also have Brian Jennings, who's now signed with Top Rank. He's in a kind of a tune-up bout, if you will. He's fighting on heavyweight. That's also on the internet portion of the card. Shakur Stevenson is also on the card, as well as Mike Alvarado, who is slowly making his comeback to boxing. It's kind of ironic. Him and Brandon Rios, both are making 2017 their comeback years. Never know. You never know if those guys ever cross paths again. I don't think Brandon wants that. He said it took too much of a physical toll on him. But, it's good to see, Mike Alvarado back in action as well. Now, one fighter I thought was going to be in action that you told me is now off the card is Nicholas Walters. Now, for those who don't know, let them know what happened with Nicholas while he's off of the card here Saturday night.
He got a fever, and he didn't feel well enough to continue with his bout on Saturday night. It's unfortunate, it would have been his first bout since quitting against Lomachenko. He was in against Arturo Reyes, who, for those of you who don't know who that is, he fought he's fought the likes of Tevin Farmer and some PB Vidyatka and Abner Mares. So it would have been a nice, tune-up bout for Walters to get back into the flow of things, get some good rounds in. But unfortunately, he pulled out with a fever.
Yeah,
I think
it kind of makes me.
The bout is going to be on TV, by the way.
Oh, great. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's have a guy who's only had a handful of fights on TV. And I understand why. ESPN might have pushed for that as well. But a guy like Nicholas Walters is one we kind of wondered what version of him we would see after him not pretty much. He did quit against Lomachenko. Let's just call it what it is. He quit against Lomachenko. Now he's pulling out because he doesn't feel well. Is Nicholas Walters' time as being, I really hate to say a legitimate fighter, but you kind of got to wonder now, pulling out of a fight, quitting during a fight, how serious should the boxing fans take Nicholas Walters after now him pulling out of a fight here this week?
Yeah, I would have liked to seen him in there this weekend because then it would have given you a good idea where his head's at. Pulling out maybe shows you where he's at. You'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt, but after quitting against Lomachenko, it's kind of hard to. One fight I would have liked to see, maybe had he gone through with his bout in the future would be a rematch with Sosa, who, although, he got a draw with Walters, and most people thought Walters won that bout, but at the same time, Sosa gave a better account of himself against Lomachenko than Walters did. So I think that would have been an interesting fight to make down the road if Walters' heart's still in the game, would be a Sosa-Walters rematch. As for Mike Alvarado, he looked done after basically quitting against Rios, what was it, 2 years ago? 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
But, he took some time off. Top Rank slowly building him back up, which is nice to see. It's interesting because Rios left Top Rank after pretty much quitting or getting knocked out. I guess he quit. No, it's kind of, I don't know if he kind of quit or not, against Tim Bradley. I don't really like to throw that word quit around very easily, but it kind of seemed like both Alvarado gave up against Rios and Rios giving up against Bradley. Regardless, it's interesting because Alvarado decided to stick with Top Rank, and Rios decided to sign with Al Heyman, or at least he fought on the PBC card. I don't think they will cross paths ever again. They fought three. The trilogy was complete. But yeah, Shakur Stevenson being on TV, it's kind of the same situation as Michael Conlan. We got 2-3 fights. Those guys are on TV instead of the Mike Reeds and the Dylan Whites because they have the amateur pedigree, the Olympic pedigree, and they're the future of the Top Rank company. And I guess they pushed ESPN to have their fights on TV. Plus, it doesn't take up much TV time, so.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, I'm really impressed by what Top Rank did with this card. So it's one I'm going to have to be keeping an eye on, watching both the fights on Top Rank TV and the ESPN portion of the card. I really think it's nicely layered what they did here with this particular bout, this event, compared to the first two outings here on ESPN. So, you never know. You never know with TV time if one of these fights that we've talked about, if they may be a swing bout of some sort, so we may get an extra fight on television, or the television cameras will be rolling and they'll replay one of these other fights during the ESPN portion of the card. So you just never know with boxing, but I definitely a tip of my hat and credit to Top Rank, who often could care less about how good the undercard is for their bouts and the events they put on. They actually did a really good job this time putting some names out there and giving these fighters an opportunity to get tune-up bouts, to get some eyes on them, to get people talking about them again. So shout out to Top Rank for doing that. Now, I got to admit something. So Seamus, if you've listened to the show or if you know me at all, people who know me know I'm a big Yuriorkis Gamboa fan. Now, the tide kind of changed with that here in May. For those who don't remember, I did go and I spent a lot of money, unfortunately, to go watch Canelo and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight. Well, the Friday before their fight, I was so hyped I finally got to see Yuriorkis Gamboa fight live. It was a part of the ESPN and Golden Boys card, Friday night fights. There in the MGM Arena. I was so hyped, and then he looked like shit and pretty much quit. So he's off my radar. I had no idea whatsoever that he was actually active. I wasn't sure what Golden Boy was doing with him. Well, lo and behold, Golden Boy tweets out a photo of him saying, "Hey, look at our winner. Yuriorkis Gamboa fought down in Mexico this past weekend, Cancun to be exact, and had a majority decision win against Alex Reyes." It's a shame that Gamboa's career has just pretty much went to shit. I don't know if I can even tout or promote him anymore or hype him anymore. It's just a shame. He's a sham of a fighter who just refuses to do any sort of defense whatsoever. He's going life and death in these fights against guys he should be blowing out of the water. I don't know. What is your take on Gamboa? Because I'm done with him. I don't know what to do with him anymore. He's not one of my guys I root for as I did in years past.
Yeah, it's a shame. Had he beaten Crawford back in 2014, he would have been the star of the 135-pound division the way Crawford became. He has that Olympic pedigree. He won a gold medal before defecting. And honestly, it's something you see with a lot of Cuban fighters. When they're in Cuba, they have this strict, almost military-like lifestyle and regiment they go by. And then once they defect and come to America, they have all the freedom in the world. And they have all the distractions in the world. And so a lot of times they don't necessarily live up to the amateur pedigree that they have. They don't live up to the hype in the pro ranks. And I think that's kind of what you see here. It's similar to Olander Solis, the heavyweight, who won a gold medal, and then he went to shit against Tony Thompson. It's just someone like Lara, and Rigondeaux, their careers haven't exactly gone to shit, but they're not exactly huge stars either. But, I think once they come to America, it's just a lack of discipline. It's unfortunate to see because Gamboa has all the talent in the world. He just kind of went to shit, I don't know if you saw, but I started a thread on the SN Boxing Facebook page. I was like, I'd love to see a card of a bunch of, trash but fun fights. And it was Chavez Jr., Chad Dawson, Glenn Tapia and Gulo, Kirkland Margarito, and Gamboa Lopez. The long over marinated Gamboa Lopez.
Just take my money now. Like I would honestly pay to watch that.
That's what I'm saying.
Like you had me at Dawson Chavez Jr. Like that's intriguing. That is intriguing. And Glenn Tapia, you said Glenn Tapia versus Kirkland?
No, Glenn Tapia and Gulo.
Oh, and Gulo.
And Kirkland versus and Kirkland versus Margarito.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just take my money. Just take it. I would hand over cash money right now. Anybody who can make that happen, put that on pay-per-view, I would, yes, I would buy that. I would buy that. I would have a fight party at my house. That would be beautiful television to watch because it would be such a bag of shit fights, but it would be so entertaining at the same time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's what's worth $100 pay-per-view. Not Mayweather McGregor, that right there.
It would be so awful. That would literally be that's a car accident that you have to stop and look at. That would be that kind of bout because that car it's a bunch of train wrecks, and Gamboa fit perfect there against Juan Lopez, who's still active and still fighting. So, I mean, granted, that was a fight we should have gotten years ago. I'm still holding out some kind of sick hope that we will still eventually see that. I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all if we don't see it here in 2018. From what I'm hearing, possibly down in Puerto Rico, a part of ESPN's deal with Golden Boy. So don't be shocked if it happens.
Hey, you heard it here first. Gamboa Lopez. It's a sickening thought, but take my money. All 4 fights, take my money.
Just take it. I will hand it over to you. I will give anyone straight cash right now if that were to happen. That is just so, man.
Because Kirkland already fought, he killed Tapia, and then I think he lost to Angulo. So the only guy left for him to fight is Margarito, and then that leaves Tapia and Angulo together. Someone also said they should have had Ortiz Alvarado to that card.
Yeah. Victor Ortiz is one of those weird guys that, I personally don't like him, but he is entertaining one way or the other when it comes to fight night. Really, all of those guys you listed are, in one way or the other, they're going to be entertaining to watch. We're not going to see any of those guys mail it in, maybe except for Chavez Jr. come fight night. They're all going to give effort. They're all going to try, which would make their fights competitive to a certain extent. But when they're facing other crap fighters, it's going to be who has what left in the tank for something like that to happen. Oh, man, you got my mind churning now. Like, I may need to make some calls and some emails tonight to see if we can get some of these fights to happen, because that would be great television.
Put it on Bounce TV, baby. Put it on Bounce TV.
Which isn't in HD, by the way. For any of the listeners here, and even you, Seamus, if you have Bounce TV in HD, please let me know. My cable provider, it's not in HD, so like, how can I just
legal UFC pay-per-view stream?
Pretty much. I mean, it's the quality of a VHS tape, and it's a shame that we have fights, and in Robert Easter's case, a championship fight on Bounce TV that's not even in HD. It is extremely annoying for someone like me who's so anal about his technology that I can't get a fight in HD television. It's so annoying.
One thing I just thought about, if Garcia-Lomachenko doesn't happen, which I don't think it will in the foreseeable future because of the politics, I'd like to see Garcia unify with Easter. Why not? He beat Broner, so why not beat his homeboy too?
And I think that's one that would be more. I think that's a. I don't want to. What's the word I want to look for? That would be a fallback for him. Is they have Robert Easter in the bag. The thing is, this Easter looks so bad and so, I don't want to say exposed in his last fight, but he definitely didn't look like the guy we'd seen in previous bouts before. Maybe it was the opponent he had in front of him. So, it definitely didn't look like the same guy we were so hyped about in his last fight, to where the Mikey Garcia we've seen, who's came back now post-retirement or contractual beef, Mikey would mop the floor with him, and I really am high on Robert Easter, but Mikey, I think, is just levels better right now. So I think that's one of those that, Mikey has in his back pocket, but I'm not sure if Easter and his team would be so willing right now to do that kind of cash-out fight for him to suffer a bad loss and then have to rebound from it. I think that's when they want to try to milk this title run a little bit longer before they have to go that route.
You're probably right. I mean, I was thinking that more on Garcia's end of not necessarily stay busy, but, he picks up another belt. So that's more of a fight I was thinking on Garcia's end. You're probably right about Easter not wanting to take it right now. But you never know. He could want to try to avenge, his friend Broner. Honestly, he couldn't do any worse against Garcia than Broner did, so.
He really couldn't. I mean, and that's one of those things to where, you saying, if he would want to challenge himself, today's generation of boxers, we just don't see enough of them wanting to be great. They don't dare to be great. We don't see a lot of them wanting to fight the best. And it gets kind of annoying, and you would like to see it. It is refreshing when it happens. So, I mean, that's why a lot of us are still, like Mike, a lot of us are hyped about the fight here in September between Golovkin and Canelo, because clearly, I guess you could say clearly, there's the two of the best guys at 160. I guess that's what Canelo wants to fight at, is 160. So, I mean, it's weird, but I think you're getting two of the better guys in the sport fighting each other. And, for years, we haven't gotten that. I will say 2017, the boxing gods have been good to us, and we've been blessed with great fights. So, if we have a lull here next week, it's okay. We still have Cotto to watch. But, hey, nevertheless, we'll still have something to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I'm not, I have to admit I will end up be watching Mayweather-McGregor because I'll be in college. I moved in back to my college that day, and a bunch of my boys want to watch it. So I am, unfortunately, going to be watching that fight. I'll be taking all their money because a lot of them think McGregor's going to win. But, honestly, I'm not that high on the Cotto-Kamagai fight. Not because of Cotto. I just don't think Kamagai is really it shouldn't be for a world title is kind of what I'm getting at here. Kamagai is a tough dude, but I don't think he's deserving of a world title shot. It's more of, like a comeback fight for Cotto, and I don't think a comeback fight should be for a world title.
No, I mean, it's one of those fights. It's kind of in a funny spot. Obviously, it's getting completely forgot about in mainstream media. It's not getting a lot of hype. I do know it's actually a lot of people there in Southern California are buzzed about it. I think the ticket sales have been decent for it. I do know a lot more actual legit boxing media are going to be there covering that compared to the sideshow freak show in Vegas. So, as a Cotto fan and a lifetime Cotto fan, that's the direction I'm going to go regardless. I don't really care what would be going on that same night. I would choose Cotto. Watching him fight over anyone else, it's just, I'm loyal to him. But, yeah, I'm kind of like you. It's kind of weird that this is for a world title. We do know Cotto said regardless, whatever happens next, this is the end of the year for him. This is his last year boxing. So we'll see. I mean, it's strange that this bout is like that, but I also think that Cotto's not selling this guy short. I think he's going to be in for a real fight.
I think it'll be a good fight. Kamagai always comes to rumble. But at the end of the day, Cotto's at another level above him. I would have loved to have seen that Marquez fight, but, obviously Marquez retired. Kudos to him on a great career. That would have been a fight I would have loved to see. And I don't think Kamagai was plan A. You know what I mean? He was probably playing C or D. But it is what it is. It's a good fight. It'll be an entertaining fight. I'm not sure if there's a co-feature battle on HBO or not. But it'll be a good fight. But I don't think it should be for a world title. But it is what it is. That's just kind of being petty. But
and speaking of fights we wanted to see, you said Marquez retiring. We've had a lot of fighters retire over the last few weeks. We've seen Vladimir Klitschko. We've seen Robert Guerrero. We've seen Tim Bradley. Juan Marquez retire. And now this week, we've got Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley did an interview with ESPN, said he doesn't see himself boxing again, which is probably a good thing. Shane is, I think, either 45 or 47, I believe. So obviously he is way past his prime as being a top-tier fighter, but was still competitive in some of the fights he was fighting in here in recent years. But, with him calling it a career, what are some of the things you'll remember most about Shane Mosley and throughout his entire career? I think it's like 15 to 20 years he's been a professional fighter. What's going to stick out to you the most about, watching Shane fight throughout these years?
Well, he was one of the best lightweights of all time. I mean, regardless of him sticking around too long, in recent years, you can't take that away from him. He was pound for pound number one for a while. He was number one lightweight probably since Roberto Duran. He's not above Roberto Duran like Mike Coppinger said, but he was one of the best lightweights ever. His two fights with De La Hoya were big time. As a younger fan, I obviously wasn't watching those fights live. I'm only 20 years old. Turned 21 in a month. Very excited about that. But so me personally watching live, the fights I remember were the Cotto fight, the Mayweather fight, Pacquiao fight, and then unfortunately at that point is when he started becoming an opponent. A big name opponent. To the likes of Alvarez and Pacquiao, Mayweather. You can't take away. He's one of the few guys that ever hurt Mayweather. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion. So props to him on a great career.
I would agree. Now, I can say I've had the opportunity to watch him fight live. I've been blessed to be able to watch a lot of my favorite fighters fight live, and Shane is one of those guys. Unfortunately, I got to see him fight live, the back end of his career. But what I'm going to remember the most is obviously, like you said, the De La Hoya fights were fantastic fights. The fights with Vernon Forrest were great fights. Granted, he lost, but it was those fights to where you saw styles-made fights, and that was literally, over the first time I really heard that phrase, and it made sense to me as a boxing fan, because on paper, Shane Mosley seemed so much better than Vernon Forrest, but we got to see Vernon Forrest elevate and just show that his style was just too much for Shane Mosley to deal with. But I also will say, after those, we saw Mosley rebound in the years following. Granted, he lost back-to-back fights to Ronald Winky Wright as well. But, he went out and beat up guys like Fernando Vargas. He fought tooth and nail with Miguel Cotto in a fight that as a Cotto fan, I honestly thought Cotto lost that bout, but that's neither here nor there. He exposed Antonio Margarito for him being the plastered hand weirdo that he is. So, he's done a lot of great things, a lot of great bouts, a lot of memorable bouts. I'm not going to shame him for losing and maybe sticking around longer than he should have because he gave us so many entertaining bouts between those times. So, kudos to him. Thank him for all that he's done, for all the entertainment he has brought to the sport. Hopefully he stays in the sport in some capacity. Do know he was trying to do his promoting thing. We know his son is trying to fight as well. So, best of luck to Shane Mosley going forward, and definitely a Hall of Famer when that time arrives.
100% concur with you, man. His son's not quite as good as dad, but it's all right. Hopefully Shane sticks around as, a promoter, or he helps his son train, or, as long as he's around and he doesn't, completely step away from the game, and, we still see him occasionally on TV broadcasts and going to the fights, and I'm sure we'll see him, at the Hall of Fame in 5-6 years. That's all you can ask, really. And hopefully he, his health remains.
Yeah, so the next question remains to me is who's going to be the next fighter that's going to retire? Because we've had a lot retire in a short amount of time. It's like I'm waiting, who's next? Who's the next name I'm going to hear next week who's going to call it a career? So, I don't know. We may start a pool for that. We vote on.
The easy name would be Floyd, obviously. I think next week is his last fight. But I guess Pacquiao probably after the Horn. I think they're going to do a rematch, so probably after the Horn rematch.
And now we know Cotto's going to retire at the end of the year.
Yeah. Who else? Oh, Roy Jones Jr.?
Yeah, Roy's never going to – until they stop cutting Roy checks, Roy's still going to be out there fighting in some capacity. I will say we do know Andre Ward is – Andre Ward's not retiring despite what he has claimed in the past. He's going to have a fight before the year is out. More than likely it's going to be either the first part of November or the first part of December. But he's going to be fighting again this year. Mark it down. He's not done yet, unfortunately, for those who don't like him, such as myself. But I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. I would say Kell Brooks should be the next one to retire. After having the broke orbital bones, I really think he should call it a career. But I'm going to throw another name at you that I think may be done sooner than later is Anthony Durrell or Andre Durrell. Well, I get the Durrell brothers mixed up. I think it's Andre Durrell's the one I'm thinking of, who's I think he may be the next one to go. And I just called it inkling, but I think he may be the next one to call it quits.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility. I think Fernando Vargas, no. What's his, the dude who fought Salido twice? Is it Fernando Vargas? No.
Francisco Vargas.
Francisco Vargas, yeah, sorry. I think, he's been in a bunch of wars. He was just stopped by Burchell. He did not look very good at all. Francisco Vargas. Yeah, so I think he could be next. I don't think Chocolatito's going to be around much longer either, to be honest.
Me either. And, there's even been some clamorings in regards to Gennady Golovkin, Triple G, even possibly after the Canelo fight, it may be his last bout, win or lose, because he's getting pressure from his family possibly to not stick around and do boxing much longer. I mean, we have to keep in mind he's another of these guys, amateur fighter, didn't start off at a young age as far as being a pro goes. So that may be one. I honestly, I think I'm not that far-fetched in thinking we may be seeing him for the last time come next month. Now, do I hope that's the case? Obviously not, because I'm a fan of watching him fight. But I'm also about, fighter safety. And if you think you've had enough, case in point with Tim Bradley, where he said, he's still having some residual effects from the concussions he suffered in fighting. So it was smart for him to step away and be completely done with the sport and let his body and his brain heal as much as it can. So I don't know. We'll see. It's a weird sport. This is the herd game, folks. This is what happens. So I tell anyone, be smart with your money. Try to maximize your earning potential and get out while you still have your health.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you what you said. I've heard the inklings about Golovkin too. For the longest time, I thought Golovkin, if they made that fight right after Canelo beat Cotto, if they had made that fight instead of the conflict, I would have said Triple G, 8 rounds. But I think Oscar De La Hoya played the cards right and milked it out, waited it out, the same way Floyd did with Manny. And honestly, if you put a gun to my head today, I'd probably pick Canelo to win that fight. So yeah, I could see this being the last time for Triple G. Another guy I could see retiring soon would be, I could see Kovalev getting out of there soon, to be honest.
True. Now, he does have a bout. It is scheduled for November. It will be on HBO. I think it's one of those things for him. I think he's needing redemption. Well, I don't think he'll be out here immediately. I think we got at least another year, maybe 2 years left in him, depending on how many bouts main events can get for him. But I think for him especially, he's going to fight at least a couple more fights just to get the taste out of losing to Andre Ward out of his mouth and out of our memories. I think he's going to stick around a couple fights, post-Ward to kind of, I don't want to say clean up his image, but try to erase that memory as much as he can out of our minds.
But I agree with you, but the names I've heard for this fight, potentially, being thrown around, Joe Smith and Barrera, aren't exactly easy fights. I mean, he could very well lose those fights as well. So, let's say he fought Joe Smith or Barrera, and there's a third name, but I can't exactly remember off the top of my head. I think it's Shabransky. But let's say it's Barrera or Smith. There's a very good chance he could lose for the third time in a row. And if that's the case, then I could definitely see him hanging him up. So we'll see with him. I hope he comes back. You said he's coming back in November, so I'm looking forward to seeing him back on HBO. Hopefully he can get his shit together. I don't know how long him and John David Jackson's relationship's going to last. I don't know if he'll be the trainer for even this next upcoming fight. But hopefully Kovalev can get his shit together and get back on track. Because I'd still like to see the Stevenson fight, to be honest. Because I think more than likely there's not really anybody like that stands out for Andre Ward except for Stevenson, but politics probably won't let that happen. So I could see Ward going up to, cruiserweight, fighting maybe Tony Bellew or something like that. And if that's the case, then I know politics have prevented Stevenson and Ward, or Stevenson and Kovalev, but that's a fight I'd still like to see.
Yeah, agreed. It will be interesting to see how a lot of these things play out over the course of the next few weeks and months, because the fourth quarter of boxing right now is still pretty wide open in regards to scheduling and who's going to be fighting who. We know what September brings. We do know in at least October we have Santa Cruz and Abner Mares rematch, and a few other fights here and there, but nothing that's really jumping off and jumping out at anyone in regards to the schedule. So, the fourth quarter is still wide open in regards to big fights that can still happen here in the fall and early winter. Now, one fight that we do know that is going to happen here in September is going to be for the vacant WBC Super Middleweight Championship, and that's between David Benavidez and I know I'm probably going to mention Ronald Gravel. Hopefully I'm not saying that right. Gravel, who's a Mayweather promoted fighter. Initially, it was going to be Benavidez versus Anthony Durrell, but Anthony Durrell pulled out of the fight. This title is vacant because Badu Jack vacated after moving up in weight. Obviously, Badu Jack will be fighting next week, a part of the Mayweather-McGregor undercard. So, your early thoughts on Benavidez, Gravel here for that vacant championship belt here for September?
I think that Benavidez is a special fighter. I mean, I think he could be the next guy at super middleweight. It's a shame he's not part of the tournament, but, I understand he's fighting for a belt, so it is what it is, and I don't think any PBC guys are part of that, to be honest. But either way, I think Benavidez is a very special fighter. Gavril, I think it's more of just who he's connected with. I think he's getting this shot because he's connected with Floyd Mayweather and Mayweather Promotions. A lot of the top guys are either injured or already have fights scheduled, or they're in the World Boxing Super Series tournament. So it was slim pickings for a fight for this belt, but at the end, I think Benavidez will get him out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree. The combination he threw against Porky Medina in his last fight, that's been on the highlight reels. He is definitely a skilled fighter here at 168, and I agree with you. I think Benavidez is the potential to be something really special going forward. And the thing is this, he's still so young to where he's going to grow more into his body, as crazy as that sounds. The kid is still only, I think he's in his early 20s or just now 20. He's still really young, can still grow into his body, could still obviously fight at 168 here for some time, but I could definitely see him also being something special at 175 as his career progresses going forward. Now, as far as Waddle getting this opportunity since Anthony Durrell pulls out, the WBC simply said, he was the next guy who was available. There are other fighters, like you said, who were tied up there in the tournament, others who have other fights situated or just couldn't do the fight or were injured. So, Gravel is the next guy up. So, I'm not going to knock him for getting his opportunity, him being the next guy up, but it does seem somewhat rushed. He is 31 years old, so it is better now than never. 18-1, 14 KOs, really against nondescript opposition, so this will easily be the toughest fight of his career. He's fought a lot on a lot of shows there in Vegas that haven't been aired, or he's seen little to no airtime, a part of the televised cards that Mayweather Promotions puts on in Vegas and in Seattle. So a lot of fans won't know much about him when they finally do see him on television when this fight occurs, which will more than likely be on Showtime. So we'll see. I think it should be interesting for the first couple of rounds until Benavidez just kind of overwhelms him.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think even though Gabriel has, the promoter with Mayweather backing him, it'll end up being more of a showcase or coming out party for Benavidez. And it'll put him right in the fray to fight the winner of that Super Series tournament. Or, politics aside, I'd like to see him against the winner of Jesse Hart and Gilberto Ramirez in a unification bout. Callum Smith, if he comes out of that tournament, or George Groves, that'd be a good fight. Even moving up to 175 eventually. You said he's only 20 years old. There's a lot of undefeated guys we've talked about already. Beterbiev, Gavastik, Alvarez. Those would all be great fights too. Benavidez, sky's the limit.
Agreed. So, boxing's future's in bright and good hands going forward. Let's just make sure that the handlers of these fighters promote them and put them in the proper fights to where they can really showcase and shine. That's really all I had for this week. Seamus, you got anything on your mind that you want to get off? Anything you want to tell the people here on air?
There's rumors of 154-pound fights that don't have dates, but they're very interesting. Jarrett Hurd, Austin Trout. Lara is supposed to fight Terrell Gaucher out of the Olympics undefeated, but now I'm hearing he might have to be forced to fight Demetrius Andre, and that would be a great fight. And then Erickson Lubin and one of the Charlo brothers, whichever one's not at 160. They got basically the same name. Lubin Charlo and Trout Hurd are two fights I would very much looking forward to. And then, I think a card that's going under the radar, between Mayweather McGregor and Canelo Triple G is that Superfly card is September 9th. 5 of the top 6 junior bantamweights in the whole world. It's going to be a great triple header. I can't wait for it.
Oh, trust me, real boxing fans have not forgot about that card. It's one of those a lot of us are salivating over because we know it's going to be a fun card, like from top to bottom. It is why, I got to definitely tip my hat to Tom Leffler. He's got a busy 2 weeks. He's got that fight card the 9th. The following week, he's got the Triple G fight. K2 Promotions has done a phenomenal job, helping bring these flyweights attention, getting them television time on HBO, and then the fighters go out and do their job and deliver and put on exciting, fun fights to where their names are now buzzing amongst not only regular boxing fans but casuals as well. I do know that fight card did extremely well, ticket sale-wise, there in Carson, California for next month. So it'll be a packed house to watch that. Trust me, it is not flying under the radar with people at all. It's just unfortunate we have a giant blanket over the sport of boxing until next week. And then once that's over, it's going to be open reign. You're going to hear a lot more about Superfly and a hell of a lot more about Canelo Triple G. We just got to get through one more week. So I tell people, we get through one more week, we'll be fine. We'll be back to normalcy here in the sport of boxing. But I agree with you here at the 154, the weight class and some of those fights being announced, are being rumored. I really hope for Demetrius Andrade's for his sake, because he's had a lot of tough luck in regards to promoters and promotion and fight money, him turning down fights. You hear a lot of different stuff, and I've had the opportunity to talk to him a couple times. I think he's made a lot of bad decisions business-wise and who he's signed on with and doing business with. So I really do hope he does get an opportunity to fight Andres Larry Lara. I think it would be a very interesting fight, aesthetic-wise, because Lara can be sometimes boring, but then we've also seen that he has some pop in his hands. And for Demetrius, we just don't know how great he can be because he's been so inactive, and when he has fought, sometimes he hasn't fought up to his potential we think he can be. So out of all those fights you named, that was one that's really intriguing to me that I've seen as well be talked about that I really do hope comes to fruition here for this year.
Yeah, man. When Andre fought Willie Nelson, he looked incredible. And then I didn't get to see the fight when he fought Jack Colse in Germany, but I heard he didn't look very good at all. So it's kind of, you don't know what Andre's going to show up that night. And Lara, he fought Canelo. I thought he did enough to win that fight, but, it is what it is. But since then, he's gone the Adonis Stevenson round and fought a bunch of bums. So this would be Lara's first tough fight since the Canelo fight, and it'd be interesting to see how he does there. Ruben and Charlo would be two of the best undefeated fighters in all of boxing. That's a great fight, in my opinion. And then Trout and Hurd. Hurd, he's still unproven, in my opinion. He looked good against Tony Harrison. But Trout would be his first big test, in my opinion. Trout's not what he was, the same guy that beat Miguel Cotto, but he's still a very capable fighter, and I think he would give Hurd a run for his money. There's a lot of interesting fights in the 154-pound class, and yeah, hopefully after next week, Superfly and Canelo Triple G get the attention they deserve.
Well, absolutely. It's like I said, 2017 has been a blessing to us boxing fans. If you take away Canelo, Chavez Jr., I think so far this year, as far as big fights have been hyped, they've lived up to their potential and been pretty good. We've had some other fights that kind of snuck up out of nowhere and surprised has been great fights. So, like I said, boxing fans, we get through one more week of the bullshit. We'll be back to normalcy. We'll be back to everything being even in the world. We'll get to see Oscar De La Hoya a lot more on television here after next week. So he'll be out promoting Canelo Triple G, and it's always fun seeing Oscar and then wondering how sober he is. But that's neither here nor there. We love you, Oscar.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Well, Seamus, man, I appreciate you joining me here on the show this week. Again, I needed help because Lord knows I'm not really I'm still fully recouped from Las Vegas, but we're here, man, and you did a bang-up job, man. I appreciate you calling in and being a part of the Punch the Face experience. And granted, you said you're starting back college, but trust me, we'll find time to have you part of the program again here in the future.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on. I had tons of fun, man. I'm glad you had fun in Vegas and came back alive and in one piece. So glad to hear that. I was glad to help tonight. It's always fun to talk boxing with someone who's a real boxing fan and not these idiots who claim to be boxing fans until next week. And
take as much money as from your friends as humanly possible because they're idiots. So one more quick thing I do want to say, and I said I was going to kind of stay off the subject as little as possible, but I got in a Twitter exchange with some people here today in regards to the glove size changing. It's going, instead of it being a 10-ounce glove, it's going to be an 8-ounce glove. And I made the analogy, and forgive me for this, for anyone who gets offended, but I made the analogy of 2 ounces only matters in cocaine sales, not in boxing. So, needless to say, I want to give a shout out. I want to make sure I get the name right because he actually is a representative and actually sells Everlast products. Ernie Gibeon, hopefully I'm pronouncing it there, or Gibeon, on Twitter, saying, no, there is a big difference, and he's not saying that because he sells the product, but there's a legit difference. So I want to give a shout out to all the Twitter banner back and forth with not only Ernie, who works for Everlast and obviously knows about his product, but also to a friend of mine and an MMA fighter, and a big-time MMA fighter, King Mo the Wall, a.k.a. King Mo FH on Twitter, us exchanging friendly banter back and forth in regards to the gloves. Listen, it won't matter what ounce gloves Floyd and Conor are wearing here next week. Conor stands no chance. And again, as I said the first time and the only time we really talked extensively about this fight on the show, is if Conor does beat him, I want everyone to keep in mind Conor's beating a 40-year-old man who hasn't fought in 2 years. So let's be realistic. Father Time is undefeated in all sports, okay? Father Time has not lost to anyone. Anyone at any time can look old when they get on the basketball court, the football field, the pitching mound, or the boxing ring. So don't think Floyd Mayweather is immune to that in any way, shape, or form. So, with that being stated, the glove size won't matter. Floyd's still going to mop the floor with him. I don't know how much about it. We'll talk about this on next week's show when Adam Abramowitz joins me live again. We'll see. You got any takes in regards to the glove matter?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't. Yeah, of course, the whole fighter safety thing, but to me, it's not that big a deal. Because let's say the fight was at 147, right? That would just mean Conor, sucking down another 8 pounds, 7 pounds. But they're still going to be the same size on fight night, regardless whether it's at 147 or 154. And Floyd's fought 46 out of 49 of his fights in 8-ounce gloves. The only ones who didn't was when he fought De La Hoya, Cotto, and Canelo. And then Conor's fought 4-ounce gloves his whole life. So I don't think it's a big deal. Like you said, doesn't matter. Floyd's going to kick his ass. People need to, stop being all butthurt about fighter safety. I mean, yes, fighter safety is a real thing. Yes, people die in the ring. Yes, boxing is a very dangerous sport. I get that. I'm not, sugarcoating. I'm not trying to dismiss it. But it's not going to change the outcome of the fight. And both fighters are used to fighting with 8-ounce gloves or less in Conor's case. It's not that big a deal. Everything about this fight is being blown out of proportion. Just shut the hell up and watch the fight, or don't.
You put it very pointedly. I think that's a great way for us to cap the show. Again, man, my guest host this week, Seamus McNally. Again, you can find him on Twitter. His Twitter handle, I'm going to spell it out for you people because, well, it's just easier that way. You can find Seamus on Twitter at SEAMUSMCNALLY13. Again, I'll tweet it out as always. So I appreciate Seamus coming on the show. Next week, Adam Abramowitz will be back live on the show, also known as SN Boxing. He'll be live this weekend in Lincoln, Nebraska, not Omaha, Lincoln, Nebraska, to watch Terence Crawford fight. So we'll obviously recap that. We'll talk about Cotto. We'll probably, unfortunately, have to talk about Mayweather-McGregor as well. And he'll probably shame me about something because that's what Adam does when he comes on the show. But until next week, I want everyone to stay safe, stay blessed, and I can't stress this enough given what's going on in the world here this past week. Love one another because that's the only way we're going to get through this. Until next Wednesday, this is Brandon Stubbs, and I am out.